Hello and welcome to Western Joint Electrical Training. My name is Jason Taylor, and I'm really excited to bring to you this introductory component for all of our training. Really, it's relevant too. It's preparing for success. So, when we take our training, we take the training for a reason. We want to learn something, we want some takeaways, or why would we give up that time? So, in order to do that, we need to somehow be able to capture that information and remember it to be able to apply it later. So in this video, I'm going to try and provide you with some tips on how to do that without excessive amount of time and without a lot of effort. So it's just things to kind of keep in mind as we're working through some um, of this stuff. So we want to know how we learn because it's just a natural thing for us in our own brains, that how we process the information. So we want to try and make sure that we take advantage of that. So we want to work on that so that we can be a little bit more effective and more efficient without all of the extra work. Work smarter than harder. So by knowing all of this about our brain, how it functions, how it works, how can we can remember things, and why can't we remember some things? Um, it's kind of like if we were to not to know any of this stuff, it's like forcing that square peg down that round hole. You can probably get it in there with enough force, but you're going to break something. Okay, and it's not going to be very efficient. So we're going to take a look and make sure that we're lining up the square pegs to the square holes, the round pegs to the round holes. Okay, making sure that we're working within ourselves to maximize our outcome and minimize the amount of work you have to put in. How do you know if you've learned something? And this is a question that I want you to sort of have bouncing around in your head, and hopefully you can kind of consider that as you're going to bed tonight. Um, just think about this. When somebody is writing something down and it makes perfect sense while they're writing it on a board or explaining it to you or something like that, but give it a 10 minutes, give it an hour, give it a day. And now you're like, well, I remember somebody talking about that, but I don't remember what it is anymore. This is the same phenomenon that's happening right now when people are watching YouTube videos and thinking that they're learning something. You are witnessing something, but you're not necessarily learning it, because learning it is going to be able to do it without too much effort and recollection. It will be the innate thing that you can just apply. So it's applying that learning. So every one of us has a little bit of a different spin on this. Try and think about that over the evening. When we look at our overall brain, our brain is our central processing unit for humans. It is something that we're born with, that we can't upgrade or change. We can't do anything about that. But what we can do is understand how it's made up. Everybody's brain is a slight bit different in how it's functioning, but they have three basic processes in them that we're going to take a look at. And we're talking about the memory or the storage capacity of them. When we look at the overall sensory storage bin on that left-hand side over here, the sensory storage bin, if you want to think about everything that you've done today, okay, just today, in the last hour, even, you've touched things, you've tasted things, you've smelled things, you've felt things, you've all of the senses. Okay, we see things, all of the senses, including what we're thinking inside of our brain. So we're constantly trying to connect dots as we go as well. So our brain is overloaded with information at all times. We're breathing, we're walking, we're moving, we're all of that at the same time, all the time. But I don't remember all the movements that I've done. I don't remember all of the breaths that I've taken. I don't remember all of the smells. You're going to remember the distinctly different ones, either the really pleasant smells or the really awful ones. You're going to remember the sounds, the distinctly different ones, the distinctly awful ones, the loud ones, and maybe even super quiet, but things that are going to stand out, they're going to be different. That's what we're going to remember. Okay, so our brain is naturally purging that stuff out. We take a look at our short-term memory. Our short-term memory is where all of those distinctively different bits go into, something that stood out. The short-term memory, though, has a limit. It's kind of like it's just going to open up the purge gates as well and drop that stuff between 12 to, 12 to 24 hours. It depends on the person. It depends on that learning. It depends on the emotion and the connection that you felt with that information. But about 12 to 24 hours. And this is where we're having a hard time, because 12 to 24 hours, it's one day. So when we think about this course or any course, let's just say you have 3 weeks to do online component, and then you're going to come back and do the lab component. Let's just say. And now you got to remember back to like 3 to 4 weeks ago for some information that you saw first up, but where did that go? It's not in your brain anymore. So there are techniques that we try and build and incorporate that in. So repetition and all of that stuff. So you're going to find that a lot of the videos and a lot of the stuff that I do will be built on repetition. So don't ignore that. Don't try and fast forward it through it. There's a reason why it's repeating itself. It's because it's trying to make sure that we're getting past the short-term memory into our long-term memory. Our long-term memory is now where we can start to recall that stuff as we want. When we talk about did we learn something? Did we learn something means it's gone into our long-term memory. This takes some effort to get there. Now, this is where we want to send our wanted information, the needed information, not all the fluffy stuff that's around it, the pertinent stuff. But the problem is that we can't just do data uploads of the important stuff. We usually, as a teaching tool, encapsulate all that stuff into a story. So it's trying to separate the story from the important bits and then put your own story around it. That's something that we want to look at. So this is where we want to ultimately get our storage. So the rest of these slides are going to be talking about how we can maximize getting from that sensory bin where it's got to start through the short term and into that long term. How much do we remember? Based on activities. If we look at the reading, hearing, and seeing, saying and doing, and the teaching, we're going to take a look at that left-hand column about the percentage of information that will be retained. And that's almost immediately afterwards. If we read the information, we got about a 10% chance of and this is just going into our short term, okay, into our short-term memory. Reading is a very low probability. Hearing, okay, like what you're doing right now, we're reading some slides, you're listening to me talk, and then we're going to add in the seeing. Okay, you're now looking at these graphics illustrations, and now I've gone and I've got the seeing, the hearing, and now I move it up to 50% retention. But we want to go more. We want more. Say and write all of a sudden. Now you're talking out loud to yourself. You're writing it down and you're talking as you're writing. You're taking notes. Okay? Now, if you see what's happening at the hear and see, and we move, if I was to draw a line right in here, if I was to draw a line right in here, we're going to call this side passive. I'm writing with the mouse, so don't judge me too much. Okay, that's our passive. And over here, we're going to call this our active. Okay, our active learning. So our passive learning gets us up to about 50%. This is where I'm talking about. We watch a YouTube video, even if it's an amazing video and it's fantastic and it makes perfect sense when we're first watching it, but it's gone. It's gone after 2 days. It's gone after a day. The reason is because you haven't done the active parts to make sure that it locks in the saying and writing. So as you're watching the YouTube videos, take notes. Don't write down everything they say, just write down the high points. Those are going to be like key things, and they're going to kind of bring it back to you as soon as you start to see that and reread that. Say it and do it. Try and mimic what they're saying. Try and do it for real. try and apply some of that learning. If you're looking at math concepts, you're looking at Ohm's law, you're looking at whatever, you can now start to apply that formula and start to take a look and rationalize it as to what it's actually doing. Instead of it just being math, some of us learn that way and some of us learn with the concept. This is what happens. It's the result of this and this. Start to look at that. And then the final piece here, which is like the most effective, is that teaching. I always get this all the time. Like, how do you know so much stuff? I'll tell you why. I've been doing it for a while and I've taught it. I didn't know this stuff that well when I first got my ticket. I knew it enough to pass my Alberta exams and my interprovincial with a high degree of marks, but not a lot of confidence. To be quite honest with you, I didn't feel like I knew a lot. I knew enough to get through the exams. But then I started to teach it. And I started getting questions from other people. And I started getting other perspectives thrown into there. And I had to start to rationalize and think my way through all of this and to connect those little dots to make sure that it made more sense. Then I knew it. But it took some time. Okay, reading alone, it's not going to lock it in. It is going to take some more effort. We want to make sure that we get that sticking to us and remember that line, that dividing line right in here, from our passive to our active learning, do something. You got to do something in order to make this stick. We're going to try and do our best to provide you with the information, but you got to take that information and lock it. Active learning. Active learning is the simply getting involved with your learning. Be a participant. Be an active participant. It's fun to go to hockey games, but it's more fun to play it. It is more learning. You get in there, you get down and dirty with this stuff, and you are going to find that it's going to be there for a lifetime. Doing is the best way to remember. So some good examples, and again, I've talked about this already. Think about problems instead of just Googling it. Don't just go and look for answers. Figure out what the answers are first. Critical think your way through. If this happens to this, then when I have a change here, what would be that? And then we can start taking a look at the Google. And if we do happen to go and start to use AI or something like that to pull up the information, don't just accept it as the answer. Make sure you understand why it's the answer. Always throw in that why. Perform your calculations, design circuits, draw diagrams. Absolutely do all of that. If you're taking a controls program, draw the controls, draw the diagrams. Don't just cheap yourself out of this because it's you that's going to lose out. Write notes in your own words. Absolutely. What are we doing? And why are we doing it? Always look for those reasons or it just doesn't stick. Study smarter, not harder. Much of our learning material is in written or in video form. Okay, so it's going to be low on that graph. Okay, low. They're still great, but we need to make sure that they jump out of that page, and that takes us in order to do that. We don't have matrix uploads to just plug in, not yet. There might be some, but they're in laboratories right now, not in general circulation. And I'm not sure if I want that anyway. While we're reading, take notes. While you're watching videos, take notes. Slow down the videos, pause it, rewind it, rewatch it. Make sure that you're pulling out that important information. And with those notes, we can now take and apply them to all kinds of other things. And I've got a whole series of these videos that you're more than welcome to take a look through about how to take notes effectively, how to pay attention effectively, how to read effectively, all of those things, including how to take exams effectively. So those are all just bits. And I just wanted to make sure that I threw this one out in particular as the essential element to begin with. Thank you. I hope you enjoy all your training.